My kids watch Bob the Builder, and there's this theme song that sticks in my head. On site, let's go on site. And as I start this nugget, I can't stop thinking about it. We're going on site. Welcome to performing a quick and dirty wireless site survey. By the time you're done here, you will understand and perform an on-site wireless site survey to determine the best placement for wireless access points. Now, before we just land at some mysterious location, I want to answer the question that's rolling through your mind. What is a quick and dirty site survey? Well, there's really two ways to figure out the best place to put your wireless access point at a given location, and that is to perform a site survey guided by a human. That's what I'm going to show you in this nugget. And the other is to perform a site survey guided by a machine. That'll be what I show you in the next nugget. And I'll give you a sneak peek. The best thing that you can do is combine the two together. For now, we're going to focus on the first one, the human site survey, or what I'm calling a quick and dirty site survey, which is where you go on site, and as long as you have a good idea of where the devices are going to be located, meaning where are the wireless devices that you are planning to service with the wireless access point, and what are the far reaches of the coverage area? Does the location want wireless inside, outside, and upside down? Do they care if they have wireless coverage in a closet? If so, how many people are going to be in that closet? Those are the kind of questions that a human being would ask. Now, I say that this kind of survey is better than a remote scientific survey, meaning there's a lot of tools out there that allow you to upload a floor plan into it, and you identify where the walls are in the building, and this tool spits out and says, here's where all your wireless access points should go. That's what I'm calling a remote scientific survey. Well, the problem is, unless you go on site, there's stuff that probably exists that aren't reflected in this floor plan. There may be walls that have been installed since the floor plan was created, or stucco siding with chicken wire that get put on the building that completely block the wireless signal. A tall wall of file cabinets. All kinds of stuff that show up. You can't see any of that doing a remote scientific survey. And likewise, the remote scientific survey doesn't account for interference. What if they installed a wireless security system inside of this facility that is broadcasting on the same frequency that your wireless access point does? That would cause a major hindrance. Those are things you just don't discover without walking into the location. So what are we planning to do here? I actually identified a church/school facility out in Gilbert, Arizona. It's called Evident Life. You'll find this combination all the time because churches have their services on Sunday, leaving their facility primarily unused for the remainder of the week. So they'll often partner with a school who's starting up, who will use all of these different rooms as classrooms during the middle of the week. But at the end of the day, both of these businesses are small. They don't have IT people usually. So they represent a greatly neglected segment of our society where you can walk in and say, I am here to help. I will install a state-of-the-art wireless network for you for free. All you got to do is buy the equipment. If you already know the people at this location, it'll be a no-brainer. As a matter of fact, when I talked to the pastor of this church, he said, it's been a long time since I've been a businessman, but last I heard, free was a pretty good deal. I said, yes, it is. The biggest thing that you'll need is a floor plan of the facility. And I know you and I may think, oh, that's easy. Not so much. Oftentimes, floor plans are completely lost or completely out of date as new rooms are added and drywall is taken up and put down. Did I just say putting down? You know what I mean. You may find you have to draw one yourself. Having an accurate floor plan is essential to performing a site survey. Now, as I mentioned on the previous slide, just a floor plan isn't enough. There are all kinds of tools that you can upload this to, and it'll say, the best way is put an access point there, there, and there, now you got full coverage. But what if you walked into this room and this is a computer lab lined with 50 different computers, all using Wi-Fi? That's where the human element comes in. It'll really benefit you to know what these rooms are used for. Well, welcome to Evident Life Church. As I'm walking up to the door, the first thought that I'm having is external Wi-Fi because I'm seeing the outside of this church is brick. I'm thinking just a single wireless access point over there on the right would be perfect to blanket this whole area in wireless, but we're already outside the scope of what I wanted to talk about. Let's look inside of the building. All right, well, I've walked through the front doors and I'm now standing in the lobby. So let me flip this around so you can see what I see. All right, so here's what the lobby looks like. Over here is the right-hand side of the room where I've got a coffee bar, it looks like, and the doors that lead into the sanctuary over here to the right-hand side. That's going to be where people sit. Over here on the left-hand side it looks like a general seating area. So gut level feel. Here's what I'm thinking. This is probably not going to be where a lot of Wi-Fi use comes in. This will probably be where people are more transitioning into the service and things like that. Over here is kind of just a general place where people are going to hang out. I can see a lot of tablets, smartphone, maybe 10, 15 people at a time max that are sitting in this area doing various things. So let's walk over here to the sanctuary and see the main service where people are sitting. Okay, we've got a whole bunch of seating areas. Now, this is going to be difficult because it really depends on the kind of church that this is. I'm thinking about, okay, how do I provide Wi-Fi here? My first question is, well, how many people are actually going to be using Wi-Fi as they're sitting in this area? If it's an older church, meaning an older generation of people, you're probably going to have a lot of books that people are bringing in, physical books. If it's a newer generation church, then you're probably going to have people that are a little more smartphone-y, tablets, like they're accessing their books electronically. You could go about this two ways. One, you could sit down with the pastor or the leaders of the church and say, well, what kind of church is this? And have a conversation. Or just from looking around, and that's what I'm going to do right now, I would guesstimate that this is probably a newer generation church because I see a lot of, kind of modern styling look up there. I see a sound booth over here with technical computers sitting and running and things like that. So if I were to guess, and I was looking at each one of these seating areas, I would say maybe 10, 15 people at a time online from each one of these areas. So as I'm thinking about where do I put the wireless access points, I'm thinking probably one per section. We've got one that would go right here covering this section, one that I would hit for the middle. And when I say section, I would kind of combine these two middle sections together. Maybe one sitting right in the ceiling above this, and then over here on the left-hand side, one to cover that area. So let's head back out of here to the lobby again. Now I'm actually pausing because I just saw this hallway. When I'm thinking of hallway coverage, unless there's going to be a lot of activity here, I'm not thinking hallway coverage is needed. Although restrooms are probably a very heavy Wi-Fi use, at least for smartphones. But nonetheless, there should be enough bleed over from the different areas that the hallway and the restrooms themselves should be covered. I wouldn't see putting a wireless access point in the bathroom as a good idea. Moving here to the other side of the lobby. We've got another hallway that goes down, which feeds, it looks like, either some classrooms or offices, not sure which. So let's head into this guy right here. All right, we have a classroom, and I'm seeing some whiteboards. I see some audio equipment over there on the left. Projector sitting right there. So when I'm thinking of Wi-Fi coverage for this area, again, just from a gut level assessment, if they've got a projector, that probably means there's a laptop that's going to be sitting somewhere over there plugging into that. So a WAP covering this would be helpful because the lobby WAP might not have enough signal to actually bleed through to whatever devices are sitting here, and you're sharing it with a bunch of devices over here. This looks like another classroom, if I could find the light switch. Not as technical, no projector. So I don't think I would put a WAP in this room unless they turned it into a multi-purpose room, maybe a computer lab or something like that. But again, without talking to the leadership, I see no intention of that coming here. So I think the WAP that we put in this room on that feeds this side would bleed through that wall, no problem, and be able to feed this side. Let's head back out to the lobby. All right, I'm walking down this hallway right here. All right, well, it looks like what we have here is another classroom, kind of general seating room. Just, again, looking at the feel of this, I'm thinking one wireless access point right in the middle. I'm seeing there's a projector sitting right up there at the top, audio system over there. So I would say at most maybe one or two laptops and everybody else using smartphones and tablets. One wireless access point should definitely cover this. Coming back out here, and the nursery. Awesome. No, our kids don't need to be on Wi-Fi. No WAP for you. So let's head back out to the hallway, and it looks like we're into a little office cubicle area, and this is going to be where some heavy work is done, I'm sure. So I'm thinking putting a wireless access point right here in the middle of that ceiling should easily cover this office area and the hallway outside of it. All right, so let's come back down this hallway, looking good so far, and head out to the outside of this building. All right, this looks like a little seating area right here, and let's take a look what is in Door number 3. Oh, look at this. It's the IT room. Light. Light. Ah. Light. All right, so there's our little switch. We're going to have to replace that guy for sure. Looks like a little DSL or cable modem connection coming in right there. The network cable's dropping down from the ceiling. Well, I've seen worse. My main concern is this is hot, and I'm looking at this. Take a look at this. What material is that? That is brick, my friend. Brick. And I'm looking right here at the door. This explains actually a lot. Look at this. That's a solid wall. Looking back at that floor plan, this entire section of the building was probably added on there. The only reason I'm saying that's significant is if we've got a brick wall going the whole way down, this divides our building into really 2 sections because we're not going to get as good of a signal passing through that solid brick as we would through just a piece of drywall. Nonetheless, we're going to have to check that out. Food for thought as we come back around. So I'm walking into this room right here. I see the brick surrounding the building, and again, another room where it's just some small seating areas. Looks like a wall-mounted monitor right there, so there might be some streaming going on in here. Again, I think one wireless access point right there in the middle of this room will work just fine to cover this whole room, and I'm looking right here. It looks like there's a little office right next to this. Let's just peek in here and see what's going on. Nice little table right there, and it looks like somebody, I feel like I'm spying on the 3 bears. One of the bears are sitting in this room. Nonetheless, if we put a wireless access point in that room right over here, it should be able to bleed through and cover that, even though we're probably going through that brick wall. I'm just banging on the wall right there to see what kind of material that is. I'm really thinking that is brick probably going down the length of the building. Let's do a quick jog. Here we are back in the lobby, and I'm seeing that same thick wall coming the whole way through, and take a look at this. They probably have this, it looks like decorative, but they probably did it that way just so it didn't look awkward to have these big, thick walls. So I'm guessing this entire thing is a brick wall running the length of the building. All right, I'm back in this room just so we can continue our consecutive room walk, and I'm really thinking I'm okay with that brick wall because the way that we've designed this, if we come back through here, this is just a little, looks like a corridor going between this room, the offices, which we just saw were over here. We're back in that little cubicle space. And another walk right into the sanctuary. Now, that's why I'm thinking that brick wall in the middle won't really cause too much chaos for us because we've really got a nice even divide anyway. All the sanctuary and all the services over here are covered by the WAPs in the sanctuary. We've got that hallway, then these little corridor rooms where we've got a WAP in this room. We've got a WAP down in that lobby down the hallway, so that should cover this. And then we hit that brick wall, and then everything else on the other side of that brick wall past this room right here has all of its own WAPs and coverages. I think the big question for me is, will this office have enough coverage? My thought is, since the cubicles are right on the other side of this wall right here, we're going to get some bleed through from that, and we're going to get some bleed through coming through the brick. I'm thinking this office should be no problem at all. This is really good. I think we've got enough data for our initial walkthrough of the facility. Let's head back to the office and look at the floor plan and do some planning from there. Well, I'm back in the office and I'm staring at the floor plan because now I want to diagram where the wireless access points should go. Now, we walked into the church right here and stood in the lobby. This was that coffee bar. I'm going to color in that brick wall that we had going the whole way down. I want to see if that impacts our plan at all. The first wireless access point should go right about there. This will give us solid coverage in that lobby area and bleed into this coffee area where it's just going to be kind of transit traffic. I don't see that many people using wireless devices as they walk into the sanctuary. Now, I said when I walked in there, I wanted a wireless access point covering each one of those sections. That would be 3 WAPs in total to cover this. That might be a little much. I don't see a lot of heavy use that would happen here, but this should give enough signal as well to bleed into these back rooms right here. We didn't walk in those. But with just a drywall wall between them, the wireless signal will pass through no problem. So this area right here is going to get some bleed over signal from the sanctuary and from coming in here. That should cover the restrooms as well. We then headed back over here to the classrooms, and this is the one that had the projector. I would put a WAP somewhere right about here. I think this WAP in the lobby will definitely bleed over and feed this classroom, but I want to make sure that we've got enough signal to get all the way down to the end of the building here and still have a strong signal. We then walked down this hallway and into this classroom where I said a single WAP here should feed this entire room, as well as bleeding into these rooms. Now you might be wondering, we didn't go in those rooms, did we? No, we did not. That's because all of this is storage rooms. Since this is just a single sheet of drywall, between this WAP and this WAP, we should have no problem getting signal there if we even need it. This, by the way, is a little thrift store. Again, not a priority for the church to have coverage there, but even if they do, this WAP should provide at least sufficient coverage for basic connectivity. Over here is the nursery, and this is the offices. I was saying a WAP right here would be awesome. It would cover all the worker bees in this little area, and this nursery should have no problem getting a wireless signal between getting a strong signal from this and this. We then walked out the hallway, outside the building, and into here. This is where we found the little IT room nook. The room with all those chairs and had that plasma screen on the wall. And the single office right here with the table and the lonely Macintosh computer sitting on the desk. I'm thinking if we put one WAP sitting right here, it will easily cover all of this and have enough bleed over into that small office. Actually, this one goes through drywall. You'll get a much stronger signal from that direction than the brick to make sure all of this is covered. So at the end of the day, here's what I think the wireless access point layout should look like from our quick and dirty survey. We've got 8 wireless access points that should provide a blanket coverage for this entire building and then some. Now keep in mind, this was a gut level analysis. Just a general view of where people are sitting, where the activity was inside of this building, and where the coverage would be needed. Now I want you to notice something. I didn't plan it this way, but it's a good formula for success. There's not really any place inside of this building outside of the restroom area that has more than 2 walls between it and a wireless access point. Take a look right here, 1 wall. Right here, 1 wall. Right here, 1 wall, 1 wall. Right here, 1 wall. Get the idea? Just as an example, if this wireless access point didn't exist, you're gonna now have 2 walls between this and a wireless access point. 1, 2, 1, 2. Now, what I'm not saying is that these offices would not have some wireless coverage if there was no access point there. There would be some bleed over. However, when you go beyond 2 walls, you start getting into trouble. You'll also notice that there is one type of room that does not have a wireless access point, and that is the hallways. That is exactly the opposite of what I see a lot of IT installers do. They think, oh, I'll put the wireless access point in the hallway because it feels kind of central, and we'll get bleed over into all the different areas of the building. Well, that's great in theory, but by the time it's said and done, the hallway wireless design leads to a lose-lose situation. There's very few people who ever use wireless devices in the hallway, and the places that really need wireless coverage have to pass through at least 1 wall to get any. Now, I told you at the beginning of this nugget that you will be able to understand and perform an on-site wireless site survey to determine wireless access point placement. So here's what I want you to do. Identify a location. Try to go bigger than a standard house. And I get it. It's weird to walk up to somebody and just say, hey, can I install a wireless network at your business or nonprofit or whatever the case is? But you know what's funny is what I usually find is if you have any level of relationship with that person, even if it's just through social media, even if they recognize you as a normal customer or anything, the conversations can quickly turn really interesting. And be honest, if you're trying to do it to build your resume, they will totally respect you saying that. If this is your first time doing it, let them know. Often a fatal flaw with IT people is they feel like they have to look a lot more intelligent and a lot more experienced than they actually are. Don't do that. So once you identify that site, obtain a floor plan and determine where the wireless devices are used. Where do people generally congregate? And identify the locations for the WAP installation, just like I did a moment ago. Now keep in mind, you're not installing anything at this point, you're just creating the plan. I've said this before and I'll say it again. This is my Twitter handle. If you want somebody to just give your plan a once-over, I'd be happy to look at it. And if I don't have time, it doesn't take much time for me to hit the retweet button, and thousands of other people might end up looking at it. Don't live in a vacuum. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.